You open a new design file hoping to create a beautiful Instagram carousel, but you don't even know where to start, what to include, or how to export the designs once they're ready for your client to edit. We've all been there. So in this video, I'm gonna cover everything you need to know. To create these templates, I'm gonna be using CorelDRAW Go, which are the kind sponsors of this video. I've used the software before, and I genuinely think it's one of the best out there to create social media templates for clients, and that is for two main reasons. First of all, it's very intuitive to use, so your clients will have a much easier time editing the templates. And second, it has a huge built-in library of assets like illustrations, text, images, vectors, like everything you need, so you don't need to go outside of the platform to source those. I'm gonna leave a link down below just in case you want to check them out. But for now, let's build something cool. Before you open any software, you need to understand two things: the brand and the content they're posting. If you design the brand identity yourself, you already have most of the things you need because you can pull up your own brand guidelines and assets. But if you're coming in to create templates for a brand that someone else designed, you'll need to ask them for all of the materials. Once you have all the design assets, you need to understand the type of post your client wants to publish. I've made this mistake before of designing templates I thought were useful and then having to redesign them because it's not what the client needed. For today's example, I'm designing Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream brand, specifically the rebrand I did a previous video where I designed the brand in a more luxurious direction. So for this brand, I'm gonna create a carousel for announcing a new flavor of ice cream that I asked ChatGPT to give me, and I feel like Ben & Jerry's has an amazing brand voice and they have a lot of personality, so I'm really excited to be designing for that. Alright, so let's open up CorelDRAW Go. And this is very cool because, as you can see, you can choose from an existing template on the bottom, like the product announcements, educational posts, testimonial, quotes. The options are kind of endless and it makes your life much easier. But I want to design something from scratch, so instead of choosing a pre-existing canvas setting like this here, I'm gonna start completely from scratch. And if you do start from scratch, make sure you choose RGB instead of CMYK, because CMYK is the color profile you use when designing like print media, and right now we're only designing for digital use, so that's the correct option to choose. For Instagram carousels, you need to set your dimensions to 1080 by 1350 pixels, and then if you're creating story templates, you need to set your canvas to 1080 by 1920 pixels. As far as resolution goes, which you can adjust using the project menu settings, I recommend 300 dpi, so your posts have like the highest quality. And before I start placing anything, I'm gonna import all of the brand assets that we talked about: the logos, patterns, icons, like everything you need. So I'm gonna start the carousel by presenting the flavor, which in this case is Olive the Drama. Honestly, it's not my favorite name, but ChatGPT just gave it to me, so we're gonna use that. So right now I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna choose a font typeface like this, for example. I'm also gonna write a clarifying text as well here in the bottom, and then I'm gonna browse CorelDRAW Go because they have like a very decent asset library, so I'm thinking that we can find very nice pictures of ice cream. Oh, and I actually never realized they used the like images from Unsplash. If you've been here a while, you know that like Pexels and Unsplash are my absolute favorite royalty-free like sites to source images from, so that's also very convenient. Okay, so this first one actually looks quite nice, and I'm thinking that now I want to add something a bit more interesting and impactful. So right now what I want to do is I'm going to create a like 2-in-1 carousel, so the consumer or the person who's seeing the template is going to have to scroll to see the full picture or the full image. Like a good tip for creating engaging social media templates, it's actually to do that because it keeps the viewer engaged for longer. So I'm going to select an ice cream texture for the background. I'm going to divide it in two like so, and then I'm just going to write drama in the middle of the post, like a huge statement. For the next image, I'm thinking of creating a circle of ingredients. So I'm gonna add the textures of all of the ingredients in a circle, like an ice cream scoop. So it's gonna have like all of the ingredients in a circle. And then I'm just gonna write the name of the ingredients using the typeface that we sourced. I remember in the beginning, I had a very hard time knowing what size of text I should be using. So I'm just gonna leave a chart here on screen of the things that I personally recommend so that you can just screenshot it if you're creating social media templates. Mainly because when you're designing, you're seeing all of your posts in like a huge screen, but then when you scroll with your phone, the image is much smaller and you need to make sure that people can read what you're actually saying. For this next one, I'm thinking of doing something a bit more minimal because it always looks more luxurious and more premium. I actually don't see an image like I want to use, so I think I'm going to create it using the AI functionality, which is actually very helpful. As you can see here, I'm just describing what I want to create, and since this is linked to Nano Banana, it's going to create something quite good. In this case, in just 3 tries, I actually got what I wanted, so that's amazing. By the way, a good tip if you're designing an informational carousel, I know that right now we're not designing a very text-heavy carousel, it's just more of like a fun one. But if you were designing a informative carousel, I would recommend that you use little arrows or like swipe text so that people know what they're expected to do. It's more intuitive and better user experience, so I really recommend you do that. Okay, now I want to create a more colorful slide with like a dictionary definition of the flavor. So again, I'm just going to use a texture background and I'm going to create a square with a title. Now I'm creating another like double slide with testimonials. I feel like I want to create a polished post-it vibe because in your fridge you typically have post-it notes and like little notes. So I just want to keep it conventional but with a touch of premiumness. So I'm going to check if the software has any good post-it notes or papers to choose from, and if not, I can always build them using shapes. Okay, this actually looks so cool. To end the carousel, I'm also going to add a more editorial style kind of post with a close-up and just some text. Then a list of things that pair well with this ice cream. So I've added the title and description, and now I'm gonna look for images of things that you can pair an ice cream with. This is a very weird ice cream flavor, so I'm not expecting this to make a lot of sense, but I don't know, I thought it would be fun. And finally, and very important if you're creating any carousel whatsoever, is to add a CTA image. A CTA, or call to action, is just a sentence telling your viewers or your customers what they should do after seeing the carousel. So I feel like it's a very good way to increase conversion rates. Okay, so we finished the carousel, but I do want to remind you that if you were creating Instagram like story templates, you would need to leave a little space on top and on the bottom of your image so that the interface elements don't just fight with your design. One tip on my end that I always do before handing off the file to the client is to test it in my phone. So I export all of the elements and all of the images that I created. I just open them on my phone and then just test and see if the font size is correct and if everything's clear, if it's engaging. Once you've tested everything, if your client also has access to CorelDRAW Go, you're all set because you can share the file directly and they can edit it inside the same software. If they don't, you will need to export all of the assets and then rebuild all of your templates in another software. So the cleanest approach is to export everything in SVG formats, and you can do that with like this function here. And that's the full process of building social media templates. If you want to see how I use CorelDRAW Go to create travel-inspired postcards, be sure to check this video here. And remember, I'm going to leave a link down below to check out the software. Subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!